Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Marauder EX here, live and in the flesh, so to speak. I'm here to do the 600 subscriber special, which I had you guys ask a bunch of questions on the preview video, and I would answer them in person. So here I am, to do your questions. First off, the hat. I told you you'd be seeing more of it. I love this hat. I really do. Yes. It's stylish. I'm not a hat person. This is like the only hat I wear. I look like crap. You may notice in the background, I'm not entirely sure how well it's picking up. I'm listening to the Final Fantasy IX arrangement CD. So if you hear familiar music, it's from Final Fantasy IX. Yes. What I'm going to do with this video is it's actually going to be a two-part video, two small parts. Because I tried uploading, I recorded this video once, about 3 days ago, and it was a 45-minute video, and YouTube took 2 days to try to upload it. I used the bulk uploader because it was over 2 gig, and I know the regular uploader gets a little weird with anything bigger than that. And it literally took 2 days to upload, and then right as soon as it uploaded, it said, "Upload failed. Upload aborted. We have no idea why. You should probably just stop doing stupid stuff." So I'm going to do 2 smaller videos in hopes that that does not happen again. It probably will, and I'm going to curse the day that YouTube was born. That's really all I got on that one. Again, to start off, I want to say thank you all again for getting me to this point. Thank you all for the comments, the questions, the subscriptions, the likes, the favorites, blah, 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 all of that jazz. I really do love the interaction. I love playing games, but I've always felt gaming is kind of a social thing, very contrary to what people believe gamers to be. So, I love the interaction that you guys have, and sharing the stories and the anecdotes about various games, especially role-playing games. You get to a certain point and you're like, well, I did this and it worked out well, or if you try this strategy, it might be a little... That's the kind of thing that I like. So please keep all of the influx onto my channel of the conversation. I love it. In the meantime, thank you all again for that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start. I'm just going to go down the list here and say who asked the question and what the question was, and then I'll do my best to answer it without sounding completely retarded. Starting off, Crystal1143 asks, what do you think if for game ROM for PS1 older game? Do my best to translate this one. I apologize if English is not your first language, or if you were typing on a smartphone or something and it decided to autocorrect. What I think the question is trying to ask is, how do I feel about using ROMs for playing older games that are no longer being made, like the PS1 and older? Emulation and ROMs are kind of a gray, nebulous area. I have no problem with it if it's not available in either format. If it's a game that I can get through, like a smash-up collection, like Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, or if I can download it off of Xbox Live or the PlayStation Network or Virtual Console, what have you, I have no problem with it, because if it's that old, then the publisher and the developer are no longer seeing a return profit on it. So, and if they're not going to take the time to re-release it to where they can make a profit off of it, I'm not going to take the time to hunt down and spend possibly 5 to 10 times what it was actually worth when it was being sold to find a legit copy that they're still not going to see dime one of. If I buy a used copy of a game off of Amazon, that's going straight to whoever owns the game. The developer has already got their 10 cents out of it. I got nothing on that one. But if it is being repurposed as a virtual console or something along those lines type game, then they're like Shining Force 2, for example. I won't pirate a copy of Shining Force 2. I'd either buy it on the virtual console or Xbox Live or Steam, or I've got it with the Genesis collection. That's money that Sega's still getting. So I want to keep them in business. But a game like, we'll say Ark the Lad collection, even though I have that, I would have no problem doing that because Working Designs A is no longer in business, and yeah, they're not going to see any profit off of it. So I have no problem with that. But if it's something that's still being repurposed to keep the developers, you know, eating and with an income, I'll do that. If it's not, if it's like pirating the ET game for the Atari, I have no problem with that because no one cares about that because no one's seeing any money off of it. No one saw money off that one to begin with. But I digress on that one. That's neither here or there as far as the question asked. Anyway, next, 2 questions asked by PSP Book 13. First one, have you ever played Virtual Hydraulic? I can never pronounce that name. I've tried so many times. On the Saturn? If so, you will understand why I asked. I haven't played that. That makes me sound kind of like a bad Saturn fan. But funny story is there was a little mom and pop video store near my house when I was in, I'm not going to say what grade because that'll age me even more. But when I was younger, there was a little mom and pop. It wasn't mom. It was just independently owned. They rented out all sorts of things. They even rented out PC games. That's where I played Final Fantasy VII for the PC for the first time. Since at the time I didn't actually have a PS1. Anyway, again, not here, not there. So this place had a copy to rent for the Saturn, and I went to rent it, and the guy behind the counter said, "Oh, it looks like we don't actually have the game. I just have the case." I guess someone didn't return it. They just returned the empty case. We'll have to call them. I'm like, well, damn it. All right. My dad asked, "Do you want to rent something else while we're here?" I'm like, sure, let me go look. And that's when I actually rented Dragon Force for the first time and played that. And that ate my soul. But then the next time I went back, they didn't have the case. So apparently someone stole the game and they never were able to get another copy. And I've not been able to track down a copy since then when I've been working on my Saturn collection. So one of these days I will find it. That may go back to the first question. I may have, bootleg a copy of that one so that I can play it. Anyway, but no, I have not played it. I really want to because that's kind of like Saturn lore. It's one of those you have to experience it for yourself from what everyone tells me. Second question asked by PSP. Also, do you ever intend to LP the epic that is Shining Force 3 all scenarios? This is actually asked by someone else as well. I don't know who. Someone else asked this one. But anyway, I'll get to that one when I can. No, I won't. I'm going to be doing Scenario 1. I've already started recording Scenario 1. I've got about 10 parts of that recorded that I'm working on. And I'll probably be working on some more of it tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. But as far as Scenarios 2 and 3 are concerned, I don't have the ability to. I have no means of being able to play an English version. I could play the Japanese version with an action replay, but I don't have the Japanese versions of Scenario 2 and 3, and I don't have an action replay. At least not a working one. So I can't do that. I could play the Japanese ones and then just use the script online to do that. That's actually, I've thought about doing that before. But again, I lack the components to do so. And the only way that I could play the English patched versions would be an emulator and a screen capture. And emulating Saturn hardware and software is just a bitch. Saturn was one of the most complicated systems ever designed, even to this day. It's ass backwards. It has 2 separate processors to do polygons in a completely different way that polygons are even done today. Back then, polygons were done with triangles, and you'd link triangles together to form 3D objects. This one used trapezoids or some 4-sided concoction. It made the polygons look better because they were smoother, so you could get better rounded images, and it could do things like that really well, but it made programming for it a bitch, which means programming an emulator for it is even harder. The best emulator that I've tried is the SSF emulator, and even that one's only about 90% compatible with most games. There's going to be either sound or video issues or just little hiccups here and there. And then I'd have to get the English... I mean, I could download the English patched versions of Scenarios 2 and 3, but I would never be able to record them. I could play them, but I'd never be able to actually record them. So as it stands right now, until the limitations on the tech behind it improve, I am restricted to only doing Scenario 1 unless I learn Japanese, or somehow come in possession of a Japanese edition of Scenarios 2 and 3, and I use the English scripts online with Action Replay. So, yes and no to that question. Yes for Scenario 1, no for 2 and 3. Sorry. Trust me, I would love to. I have my gripes with Scenarios 2 and 3, but they are still great games, and it is one solid game, so I really feel like just doing Scenario 1, I'm going to be doing a disservice to all of you guys, but it's all I can do. So, next question, asked by Super Mike 12321. If you had to pick one game to have and one game system to keep, which would they be? This is not going to come as a shock to any of you. I'd keep the Saturn. I mean, it's all I talk about, really. I'd keep the Saturn, because it really is my favorite system, and it's the most nostalgic for me. I'm listening to Final Fantasy IX on the Saturn at the moment, which I think is a little weird. But I love the Saturn. That would be my system of choice if I had to keep one. And if I only had to be able to play one game, it would be Dragon Force. Mainly because I could play that one over and over and over. And it was designed for that. You could play it repeatedly. It's got several different story paths because of each monarch. And then you've got slightly different story paths within each of those. Because you've got all the little side quests that you don't have to do. They don't really add to it. They add just a little bit more. Like going to meet Vlad at Fiend Tower and finding the Dragon Men, that sort of thing. So, I mean, there's always something you can do with it. And then you can always just do the strategy completely differently. I said during my LP of Dragon Force that a friend of mine in high school played as Mikhail all the time. And he came up with really good strategies for it. And then another one of our friends just picked it up and tried Mikhail, and they're like, what are you doing? It's like, well, we figured you were going to try someone else. No, I've got an idea. And so he played Mikhail, and then he moved all of his generals from Mikhail, who starts at one of the farthest western sections of the map, moved him all the way east and south to join with Wen. Just right at the beginning of the game. It was amazing. And like he got into no fights on the way there because of he did it just right off the bat. And it was luck. But it was the most entertaining playthrough that we'd watched. So, it would definitely be Dragon Force because you could just play that game over and over again, and it's not gonna get old. So, those are the two that I'd say I'd keep if I had to. Another default would be maybe PC, because then I could play anything on Steam. But if I would just have to be one game, I'd still be kind of screwed. So, yeah. Let's see. Reezer Cliff 1. I haven't said this yet, but I apologize if I'm screwing up anyone's names. Pronunciation is not my strong suit. He asks, how old was I when I was born? I was 42, and I've got that Merlin/Benjamin Button disease. I age backwards. I know this is a completely joke question, and I'm answering all of the questions on here, regardless if they're jokes. I know a lot of these are joke questions, so there are 2 on here that were asked by someone that I know are joke questions, and I know that person, and I'm gonna have fun toying with them. But yes, I'm gonna answer every question. So yes, my question to that is, how old was I when I was born? 42. Benjamin Button, going backwards. You did have a serious question that I will go ahead and answer. Do I have a modded Sega Saturn? No, I don't. And that kind of goes back to the question about Shining Force 2, or Shining Force 3 scenarios 2 and 3. If I had a modded Saturn, then I could bootleg the scenarios 2 and 3 with the English patch and burn those onto a disc and play that. But from what I've seen, bootlegging, or not bootlegging, but modding a Sega Saturn is just as much of a bitch as trying to emulate it. Because the US Saturn has 3 different motherboard configurations from what I've seen, and one of those is categorized as difficult to mod. The other 2 are you'd best not try unless you've got a background in electrical engineering, is what people say. And I'm like, I know a little bit about that. Like, I was able to successfully, with the help of a friend, soft mod a Wii, but that's soft mod, that's software. It's not hardware. Modding a Sega Saturn, from the look of it, looks to be just a massive bitch. If anyone out there can do it, I've got a spare Saturn that I actually want to have modded for that purpose. I'd love to mod it to be able to play backup games so that I could do scenarios 2 and 3, and then have a region switch included so that I wouldn't need an action replay to play import games. So if anyone out there can do that without ripping me off hardcore as far as how much it would cost to do so, I would gladly have it done, because that would just be awesome. And I've seen a couple of posts online for people selling modded Saturns, but they're charging, you know, $100 to a couple $100 a pop for the modded Saturn, and I spent $199 on the Saturn when it came out, and it's over a decade and a half ago. I can't justify spending that. That's like, it did not, you know, devalue well. So yeah, I think I'll go ahead and end that here, because I've got 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got a lot more questions to keep going, but I don't want it to get too long. I'll answer the 3 questions, or the 2 questions by Meru Wingley 1. Again, please forgive me if I'm screwing up your names, please. What got you into gaming and LPing in the first place? This is actually asked by someone else as well. This was also asked by Neris Nor, so I'll just go ahead and answer both of those at the same time. I actually saw a Let's Player by the name of Wolfos. I've actually subscribed to him. If you get a chance, go check him out. He hasn't done too much recently, but it looks like he's starting to get back into it. I really hope so, because I love his stuff. It's hilarious. But he was doing a Let's Play of Shining Force 2, and I just loved it. I'd seen a couple of Let's Plays before that, but I just didn't think they were all that interesting. But I saw this one of Shining Force 2, and it was just, I loved it. He was informative, he was entertaining. It just caught my, and I'm like, I've been playing this game forever. I could do a Let's Play of this, or of games that people haven't seen, like Dragon Force. And Dragon Force was my first LP, and that's the one that I really wanted to do. Probably going to go back and redo that one without sucking so much. But anyway, I saw his videos, and I thought I could do this. So I started looking into what's required, and I found out the easiest way to do it is just to go out and buy a Dazzle. Because a Dazzle comes with the software needed. And I found one on sale at Best Buy. It was their the black HD model, which does not actually, in fact, record in HD. And it came with Pinnacle Studio 12. And I'm like, that's all I need. Because everyone's like, oh, you need a Dazzle and you need a capture program. You need a capture card and program. And so I found both of them on sale. And happy birthday. Literally, that was actually my birthday present. I think from either my wife or my parents. I'm not sure. But yeah, bought that. The same day that I bought it, Culex actually bought his as well at the same place because we were hanging out and he saw what it was and he's like, oh, I could try to get into this. And so once I started recording, I started bouncing stuff off of him, and you see him in half of my projects. I just, like, this is more fun with friends. Not that I don't mind doing it, it's just me commentating, but it was hilarious to do with friends. And, yeah, I got into it with watching NLP and thinking I could do this myself, and then it seemed that simple. And now it's gotten ridiculously more complicated, but I'll save that for, there's another question that it gets into that. And your second question is it possible to pay for a copy of the Final Fantasy clock that is in my game room? As of right now, no. I'm sorry to say. My wife and my friend who made it for me, the friend of ours did the logos in the appropriate places because the clock was too big to print out as one sheet. And then my wife took that and cut all the logos out and assembled it onto the clock itself. The friend is very cautious about it because the response is that's a good way to get sued, making money off of someone else's copyrighted material. It's a gray line, especially with sites like Etsy, where you can make craft-related things that are video game inspired, like a Pac-Man scarf and little piranha plant earrings and that sort of thing. But it's Final Fantasy logos, which it's got the little copyright symbol on each one, so they're a little hesitant on that. And then I'm really not sure my wife has the patience to make another one, to assemble another one. There is this is not a unique clock. Well, this version is a unique clock, but it's not a unique concept. I actually got the idea for this off of DeviantArt, so it's really not hard to do, especially if you go for a smaller size clock. Like if you're just doing one that has less than a 12-inch diameter face, you could print it out as one piece of cardstock. And there are things online for the smaller faces. Because I wanted a bigger one, we had to change it a little bit. But it does get into that weird gray area of making money off of someone else's copyrighted material. So I'll post this to my wife and see if she has a problem with making another one. And if she doesn't, then maybe something can be worked out of, hey, we can do a gift of some sort. Gift. Yeah. Like, I'll gift you the clock if you gift me a game that I need for my collection, that sort of thing. But I'll talk to her about it. That's going to be up to her. But as it stands right now, I have to say probably not. But we'll see how it goes. Never know. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and I will see you in the next part where I continue answering all of your questions to the best of my abilities without sounding like a tool. So stay tuned for part 2.